My name is John Cooper, and I'm the sheriff of Oakhaven County. Being a law enforcement officer in a small town meant I was pretty well known, but when I decided to move out of the town center and buy a little property a few miles out, I hoped for a little more peace and quiet. The house itself was perfect, a bit run down, needed some work, but had good boneyard for my two retrievers, Duke and Daisy, to run around. What I didn't anticipate was my immediate neighbor, Karen Leonard. From day one, the vibes were off. It started with the way she looked at me when I was unloading the moving truck. A long, drawn-out stare that didn't feel like neighborly curiosity. There was something else there, something colder. She introduced herself with a tight smile, her voice dripping with a saccharine sweetness that tasted like vinegar. "Welcome to the neighborhood, Sheriff Cooper," she said, emphasizing my title as if it was a warning. "I'm Karen Leonard. I've lived here for 20 years. So happy to have new neighbors." The first few weeks were a series of microaggressions. Casual comments about the changing neighborhood, pointed questions about where I was really from, despite me being born and raised in the state, and a general air of disapproval for just about everything I did. My music was too loud, my grass was too long, my friends who came to visit were, well, let's just say she made sure to stare extra hard at them. I'm a black man. Karen is a Karen. You get the picture. I tried to ignore it, chalking it up to small-town quirkiness, but it was hard. I'd worked hard to get where I was, and I wasn't about to let some outdated prejudice ruin my peace. I focused on fixing up the house, training my dogs, and doing my job. I decided to be the bigger person, offering a polite nod when I saw her, even bringing over a plate of my famous barbecue ribs as a "welcome to the neighborhood" gesture. She took the ribs with a pinched expression, thanked me in a tone that suggested I'd just gifted her poison, and promptly disappeared inside. I should have known then that this situation was only going to escalate. I just didn't know exactly how absurd it was about to get. I had cameras installed around my property for security reasons, and as a public servant that's important, plus I had a feeling with Karen it would be a good idea. Things simmered for a while, a low-grade tension that hung in the air whenever I saw Karen. Then came the Wi-Fi incident. I'm pretty tech-savvy, and I keep a close eye on my network security. A few weeks after settling in, I noticed something strange in my router logs. There was an unfamiliar device connected to my Wi-Fi, a device I definitely didn't recognize. I initially assumed it was a glitch, maybe a neighbor accidentally hopping onto my network. So, I changed my password to something complex and unique, making sure it was WPA3 encrypted and nearly impossible to crack. Problem solved, right? Wrong. A few days later, the same unknown device was back on my network. This time, I was determined to find out who, or what, was leeching off my bandwidth. I ran a deeper scan, identified the device's MAC address, and did some old-fashioned detective work. It didn't take long to trace the MAC address back to a specific device, a smart TV. And not just any smart TV, but the brand and model that I knew Karen Leonard owned. I was floored. She was actively, deliberately stealing my internet. The audacity. I could have just blocked the device, but something told me that wouldn't be enough. This wasn't just about free internet, it was about power and control. Karen felt entitled to take what she wanted, simply because she felt she deserved it. It was a reflection of her whole attitude towards me, her underlying belief that she was somehow superior. So, I decided to play along, to see how far she would go. I decided to document everything, gathering evidence just in case things escalated, which, let's be honest, I knew they would. I'm a sheriff, after all. I know how these things tend to unfold. I knew it was time to finally confront her. I waited for the opportune moment. I knew Karen had her routines, her daily walks around the block, her afternoon gardening sessions. I planned to catch her during one of her walks, when she least expected it. One sunny afternoon, as I saw her emerge from her house, I casually stepped outside. "Karen," I called out, my voice calm and even. She stopped, her eyes narrowing as she saw me. "Sheriff Cooper," she said, her tone guarded. "Is there something I can help you with?" "Actually, yes," I replied, maintaining a friendly demeanor. "I was wondering if you've been having any trouble with your internet lately." Her eyes flickered for a split second, and I knew I'd hit a nerve. "No, not at all," she said, a little too quickly. "Why do you ask?" "Well," I said, feigning innocence, "I've been having some issues with my Wi-Fi. It seems like someone has been using my network without my permission. It's been slowing everything down." Karen's face remained impassive, but I could see the tension building in her jaw. "That's terrible," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "You should report it to the internet company. Maybe someone is hacking you." I paused, making direct eye contact with her. "I already looked into it," I said, my voice still calm but laced with a hint of steel. "And it turns out the device using my Wi-Fi is your smart TV." The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it, searching for an excuse. That's impossible," she stammered. "I have my own internet." "Really?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "Because according to my network logs, your TV has been consistently connected to my Wi-Fi for the past few weeks. And I just changed my password yesterday, but it's still connected overnight." Karen's carefully constructed facade crumbled. Her face contorted with rage. She took a step towards me, her voice rising in a shrill pitch. "How dare you accuse me of stealing your Wi-Fi," she screamed. "You think just because you're the sheriff, you can come over here and harass me?" This was exactly the reaction I was expecting. I had her right where I wanted her. I waited for the opportune moment. I knew Karen had her routines, her daily walks around the block, her afternoon gardening sessions. I planned to catch her during one of her walks, when she least expected it. One sunny afternoon, as I saw her emerge from her house, I casually stepped outside. "Karen," I called out, my voice calm and even. She stopped, her eyes narrowing as she saw me. "Sheriff Cooper," she said, her tone guarded. "Is there something I can help you with?" "Actually, yes," I replied, maintaining a friendly demeanor. "I was wondering if you've been having any trouble with your internet lately." Her eyes flickered for a split second, and I knew I'd hit a nerve. "No, not at all," she said, a little too quickly. "Why do you ask?" "Well," I said, feigning innocence, "I've been having some issues with my Wi-Fi. It seems like someone has been using my network without my permission. It's been slowing everything down." Karen's face remained impassive, but I could see the tension building in her jaw. "That's terrible," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "You should report it to the internet company. Maybe someone is hacking you." I paused, making direct eye contact with her. "I already looked into it," I said, my voice still calm but laced with a hint of steel. "And it turns out the device using my Wi-Fi is your smart TV." The color drained from her face. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it, searching for an excuse. That's impossible," she stammered. "I have my own internet." "Really?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "Because according to my network logs, your TV has been consistently connected to my Wi-Fi for the past few weeks. And I just changed my password yesterday, but it's still connected overnight." Karen's carefully constructed facade crumbled. Her face contorted with rage. She took a step towards me, her voice rising in a shrill pitch. "How dare you accuse me of stealing your Wi-Fi," she screamed. "You think just because you're the sheriff, you can come over here and harass me?" This was exactly the reaction I was expecting. I had her right where I wanted her. I held up my hand, stopping her tirade. "Karen," I said, my voice now firm and authoritative, "I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm simply stating the facts. Your TV is connected to my Wi-Fi, and I need you to disconnect it immediately." She scoffed, crossing her arms defiantly. And what if I don't? What are you going to do, Sheriff? Arrest me for using your Wi-Fi? I don't want to have to take any drastic measures, I said, but unauthorized access to a private network is a crime. I can choose to press charges. I'm giving you a chance to do the right thing. I truly didn't want to use my authority in that way, but she wasn't leaving me much choice. Karen's eyes flashed with anger. You wouldn't dare, she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. You think you're so high and mighty, coming into this neighborhood and trying to tell me what to do. You're not better than me. This isn't about that, Karen, I said, trying to reason with her. This is about respecting boundaries and not stealing from your neighbors. She ignored me, launching into a full-blown Karen meltdown. She ranted about her rights, about how she deserved free internet, about how I was ruining the neighborhood. She yelled about reverse racism and how I was probably targeting her because she was white. She went on, her voice growing louder and more hysterical with each passing moment. Throughout her rant, I remained calm, documenting everything on my phone. I knew this was going to be useful later. I needed to get her to slip up, to say something that could be used against her. I knew that her racist rant was a common tactic for her, but it was also a distraction. I just needed her to get flustered enough to admit what she was doing. I'm not going to stand here and listen to this, I said, finally interrupting her. Disconnect your TV from my Wi-Fi, or I will have to take further action. That's when she snapped. Fine, she shrieked. I'll disconnect it. But you know what? I hope your internet goes out forever. And I hope you choke on those barbecue ribs you gave me. She stormed back into her house, slamming the door behind her. I sighed, shaking my head. I knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. But what I didn't know was what I was about to uncover, a secret that would change everything. As Karen stormed off, fuming, I decided to run one last check before leaving. I wanted to make absolutely sure her device was disconnected from my network. I logged into my router and confirmed that her smart TV was no longer connected. But something else caught my eye. Buried deep in the router logs, I found a record of her activity, the websites she had been visiting while connected to my Wi-Fi. Most of it was harmless, news sites, social media, online shopping. But then I saw something that made my blood run cold. There were several entries for websites related to identity theft and fraud. And not just general information websites, but specific forums where people discussed techniques for stealing identities and creating fake documents. I dug deeper, cross-referencing the timestamps with her known activity. It became clear that she had been using my Wi-Fi to access these websites at times when she thought I wouldn't notice. She had been meticulously researching and planning something illegal and potentially very dangerous. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. This wasn't just about free internet anymore. This was about serious criminal activity. I immediately contacted my deputy, Mark, and asked him to come over with a warrant for Karen's arrest. I explained the situation, telling him about the Wi-Fi theft and the disturbing websites she'd been visiting. Mark, who had known about Karen's behavior since I moved in, was immediately on board. He was just as shocked and disgusted as I was. Within an hour, Mark arrived with the warrant. We approached Karen's house, knocked on the door, and waited. After a few tense moments, she opened the door, her face a mask of anger and defiance. "What do you want now?" she demanded. "Karen Leonard," I said, holding up the warrant, "I have a warrant for your arrest on suspicion of identity theft and fraud. You have the right to remain silent." Karen's jaw dropped. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "This is ridiculous," she shrieked. "You can't arrest me for that. I didn't do anything." "We have evidence that suggests otherwise," I said calmly. "You're coming with us." She struggled as we placed her in handcuffs, screaming about being framed and falsely accused. We searched her house and found a treasure trove of evidence, fake IDs, stolen credit card numbers, and detailed plans for various scams. It was clear that she had been running a sophisticated identity theft operation for quite some time. As we led her to the patrol car, the other neighbors peeked out from their windows, their faces a mix of shock and satisfaction. I knew that Karen had been a thorn in their sides for years, and they were probably relieved to see her finally face the consequences of her actions. At the station, Karen continued to deny everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. She was eventually charged with multiple counts of identity theft, fraud, and unauthorized access to a computer network. She sat in jail pending her court appearance and was denied bail. The story made local news, and I became something of a local hero. The irony of the sheriff arresting his racist neighbor for stealing his Wi-Fi and running an identity theft ring wasn't lost on anyone. The aftermath has been interesting. My other neighbors have been incredibly supportive, offering apologies for Karen's behavior and welcoming me into the community. The peace and quiet I was originally seeking has finally arrived. And Karen? Well, she's facing a long prison sentence. I hear she's blaming me for everything, claiming I framed her because I'm black. Some people never learn. As for me, I'm back to doing my job, protecting and serving my community. And every now and then, I chuckle to myself, remembering the time Karen Leonard tried to steal my Wi-Fi and ended up exposing her criminal enterprise. It just goes to show you, sometimes karma has a funny way of working.